Yo, what's checking, everybody? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the Orangebloods modcast. New day. We want to give you guys more time to watch this video going into the weekend than 36 hours. So I'm here. Jason's here. Anwar's here. Alex is here. It's the usual standard crew. And of course, we're brought to you by deadsoxy.com. They've got a 30% off promotion right now on the website if you use your code word Orangebloods. Plus, Blake, do we have like a full screen graphic of this, or do I need to read it from my notes? There it is. Dead Soxy's giving out a sock giveaway. 10 different winners, 27 pairs of socks. There's a $1,000 value. All you've got to do is enter sometime between now and the 16th. So you got like 3 or 4 days. All Dead Soxy members get automatic entry into the sweepstakes. Just go to deadsoxy.com. #sweepstakes. The 10 winners will receive a briefcase full of 27 pairs of socks and a $300 gift card. All you got to do is go enter. And who knows? Maybe you've either got a Christmas present for yourself or someone else. We do love our partners over at Dead Soxy.
I'm wearing my Dead Soxy right now, dude. Yeah.
Let's see him. Put that foot up in front of the camera if you can, old man. There he is.
He is. Dude, and mostly, I swear to God, when I put them on this morning, you guys are like, oh, you're saying that for the modcast. These are like the thicker dress socks if you've worn them. Mm-hmm. They fit like an effing glove, dude. They hug your feet like a glove. And I was telling like non-Orangebloods people about these socks. Try them out, people, man. They're freaking amazing. So
you just went to the top of the mod rankings for the people over at Dead Soxy. Guys, like the video, even if some of the stuff we'll talk about isn't very likable. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Tell your friends and families. Link it up on your socials. Do all of those things that we ask you to do. Ring the bell. Get notifications. It's hard to start anywhere else today, fellas, other than we're 24 hours and some change out from the news breaking yesterday that Texas men's basketball coach Chris Beard had been arrested. Obviously, he's since been released, but we're still kind of at the beginning stages of what will probably prove to be quite the saga, because I don't think we know what's going to happen and what the timetable looks like. And, you know, if Chris Beard would lose his job, how much time is in between the moment that happens and when Texas would make a hire for another men's basketball coach. Oh, by the way, you've got the number 7 team in the country. They played last night. It looked like a basketball team that had been through the ringer for most of the night. Jason, I'll come to you first because you and I have been riding shotgun together the longest on orangebloods.com. I mean, we've surpassed our 20-year anniversary this year together on the site. Kind of a situation unlike you and I've seen some stuff before, but I can tell you at the end of yesterday, I certainly felt like I had been a part of covering something that was unique in the history of Orangebloods. What was your take from your perspective watching all of this?
Yeah, you know, we've covered so many arrests, catch, and scandals, if you will, and guys getting kicked off the team and videotapings happening at bowl games, and too many stories to rehash out, but never something that involved a head coach. I mean, you've had head coaches at Texas and some assistants, some highly regarded assistants, getting some scandals, but nothing like this, where it's a alleged, got to make sure to say that, alleged violent crime against a woman by a male coach of, you know, probably the second biggest program on the university, on the UT campus. So my thoughts were just unprecedented. You know, I wrote about it in my 321 a little bit, and I said it on Slack. I was trying to think of another scenario where another head coach of a major program was involved in this kind of allegation. I couldn't really come up with one. I mean, someone mentioned Bob Knight, and I was like, yeah, back in the 70s, he was alleged to have punched a cop or something at the Pan Am games, and he put his hands over it.
Baylor basketball?
Yeah, but that wasn't the head coach with a violent felony allegation. I mean, Baylor basketball was awful, of course, and their football stuff. But nothing where a head coach that I can – and maybe it's out there, I just couldn't remember – but a head coach a violent felony accusation against a female. or a male for that matter. Just blew my mind, man. Like you called me, Catch, at 7:30ish in the morning when the news was starting to leak out, and I was blindsided by it. And just over the course of the day, it was just surreal and hard to wrap my head around it. I said it in my column last night. I said, hey, usually the truth, I always say the truth is somewhere in the middle. When you have kind of a he says, she says, or two differing opinions, the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. But that being said, if there is any truth to any of these allegations and anything that was in the arrest affidavit, I don't see how Chris Beard maintained his job at Texas. Unless this is completely fabricated and the complainant basically made everything up and admits to that. I don't see how Chris Beard maintains his job, and I don't think he should maintain his job. This is a guy that's a public figure. He's supposed to be developing young men, not just as basketball players, but on the court. And clearly, there's a lot of question on whether or not he's capable of doing those things.
Anwar, I'll come to you second on this while you're taking a drink. You were on the front lines of the reporting on this yesterday, right? So you're at HEB. We talked a little bit about this on the Overreaction Monday show that we did, kind of how it all unfolded. You're just going about your normal Monday routine, getting a few things from the store. And here I am calling you up and letting you know that one of the bigger situations in the history of the Texas Athletic Department has popped up, and we need to all work together, Johnny, on the spot from a coverage standpoint. Since you did so much reporting on this yesterday, where is your head the next day as we currently sit here and do this show?
Well, fortunately, I was able to finish my HEB shopping today, so I was forced to cut it short yesterday. So, so I was able to go back this morning and finish it up. Yeah, it's interesting because now it's it's about 24 hours to really kind of think about it and formulate opinions. And I've had some conversations, and Jason, you kind of allude to it. There are a lot of things that happen in the sports world where you can outline a path of return for a person. For instance, if someone gets a DUI, you understand, okay, they're going to get a DUI. They're going to probably go to a such and such class here. Maybe they do a little rehab, something or other. They're suspended for a little bit, and then they come back. It's all good, right? I think we can wrap our heads around certain little things to that effect. And we almost understand the domestic thing, as relates to an athlete. Because you can just suspend an athlete, you just never talk to them. And so they're here, but they're not here, but they're not on the front lines. Chris Beard's on the front line. This is the guy, to your point, he's on the front lines. And so you can't just act like it just doesn't exist. I was a little bit surprised. And you and I talked yesterday, but was kind of curious, well, how's LHN going to handle this thing? If you had a drinking game for every time Lowell mentioned Beard and the third-degree felony, we'd have been drunk by the first 10 minutes. I was surprised at how often they actually talked about it on LHN, over and over and over. And I thought, okay, they addressed it in the beginning. Okay, they'll move on. They just wouldn't stop talking about the whole thing. So it's a tough situation right now because there's a part of you that says a part of me that says you want to have some due diligence, give a person a chance. We've heard one side of the story, we haven't heard his side of the story. Let's see it. Let's let this whole thing unfold. Us understanding that if you try to fire someone with cause, that person is inevitably going to come back and sue. But then also understanding the gravity of what happened and respecting, this thing happened. This thing has to be addressed. To Jason's point, even if there are some more sides to it, there's still something pretty bad that happened. And what would they do going forward? Charles made a good comment when he goes, how does he even walk into a living room and explain that on every single recruiting visit? Every recruiting visit, he would have to answer for that. It's just a lot to deal with. That's my initial thoughts, but I'll let some other people jump in.
I thought about that on more too. You don't think moms are, how are you going to recruit a kid and you're sitting there with mom and dad? Dads too, but moms in particular. I don't know, man. I don't know how he recovers from this.
Yeah, you can't. Your pitch can't be, Well, she kind of crazy, so shit kind of happens. Like you can't say that to a parent. Like they're not going to buy that.
No, nor should they.
Well, and I think the one of the many elephants in the room. You got a room full of elephants, and Alex, I'm going to come to you in just a second. But in the way of recruiting, I got the sense that this is going to take some time. That however Texas, first of all, there's a basketball season going on right now. So if you fired Beard this week, you're not making a hire for months, really. I mean, you can't really do a true basketball. You can get your ducks in a row, but it's next year when you have a basketball coach. I think this kills recruiting. Now, Texas had some guys sign in November. So part of this year's recruiting class is already in the bag, although I think there's some concerns that they might lose both of those players, Ronald Holland among them, based on if Chris Beard's not the basketball coach. You basically can't recruit right now because you can't tell a recruit that the head coach that's recruited him is going to be there. And then you've got this ugly situation that's kind of the umbrella all over all of it. If this were to take months, what kind of damage does that do for recruiting just even in the short term? Because you're in a real holding pattern. And again, maybe Jason, is it even a question that we can answer? Because I don't know that I can't think of a situation that's ever completely quite like this one, that if you're Rodney Terry and you're calling a 5-star on the phone, like, there's just not a whole lot you can say right now other than, hey, hang in there with us. We think this will clear up eventually, but it's just not a whole lot one can do right now on the recruiting side of things. And that's a problem.
Yeah, sorry, I'm literally texting and DMing as we're talking here. This Texas just got a preferred walk-on kicker. So
breaking news.
Preferred walk-on, or is that a full scholarship? It is a preferred walk-on. So to answer your question, I'm kind of halfway listening. I'm sorry, but yeah, putting Rodney Terry. I mean, what can he say to any recruit that he calls, or if they somehow host recruits at this point? Hey, just hang tight. This is all going to blow over. I mean, that's disingenuous. You can't say that. Hey, hang tight. Chris Beard's going to be totally cleared of all these allegations. I mean, I don't know, man. You're putting Texas in a bad position. Chris Beard did, obviously, on so many levels. But yeah, you're putting this coaching staff that's trying to piece things together and piece together wins. And we saw how difficult it was last night for them to get a win at home against Rice, much less asking them to recruit. I mean, that's got to be the furthest thing from their mind, I think. I mean, unless your recruiting pitch is, hey, this is Rodney Terry. We still want you at Texas. I'm going to be here next year, maybe not with Chris Beard, but with another coach. I still want to be your focal point, or your focal recruiting point of contact. I don't know how you actually recruit at this point until this is completely resolved one way or another.
Well, Catch, I mean, before you go to Alex real quick, everyone always likes to complain about like negative recruiting. These guys are negatively recruiting. Catch, this is a 3rd-degree felony with a strangulation. You want to talk about the ultimate in negative recruiting? And we're talking about recruiting elite players. We're not talking about just run-of-the-mill kind of guys. We're talking about, guys who could potentially go pro, whether it's NBA, overseas, something like that. We're talking creme de la creme. Guys have a hell of a lot of options. You talk about negative recruiting when all these other schools pick up the phone? They're like, yo, are you holding out for a dude who just got out of jail, or are you going to come to our program? Like, that's a hell of a lot to recruit against.
Yeah, I almost don't even know that assistants or head coaches at other schools, it's so damning from an optic standpoint that you may not even need to say anything. It's just kind of, I said it yesterday, it kind of speaks for itself. We are going to move on to football. Alex, I do want to get your thoughts on this. You can go as deep as you want to. Just any thoughts in your head the next day on this? Obviously, yesterday was a bit of a surreal experience. Whether you were close to it or watching it from afar, you were probably somewhere in the middle trying to help us gather facts and do all of the things, but at the same time on text message chains and stuff like that. What stands out to you the most today?
Well, I never thought that I would, be texting yesterday with the basketball SID and stuff. It's like I didn't wake up yesterday thinking that would be what I would be doing. But it was a big story. It was kind of a circle the wagons type of deal where we were all just having to do what we could. And as far as what happened, I have nothing to say about it. It's obviously terrible, the allegations, and just I guess if I have anything to say about it, it would just be sort of piggybacking on what you guys said about recruiting and about Coach Terry. It's like he's in an impossible situation, and it's like that's not even something that we even need to speculate about how bad it's going to be or how worthless recruiting is going to be or what's going to happen. Like that it's not anything we even need to speculate about or talk. Like it just will be terrible. He's in a completely unwinnable situation here. Literally, you guys just talked about it. What do you say? What do you say to these guys? I don't know if I'm going to be coach. It's terrible optics around this thing. I don't know what's happening next. The team could go into some kind of tailspin. I don't know. Maybe they won't, based on the way that it seemed they looked like last night. I mean, it's just a lot of confluence of factors that are going to be bad, and to heap that on one dude, it's pretty tough, man. Chris Beard put this program in this university in a bad spot. That's despite the good that he's done here, it's gonna set him back. And the only other thing I'll say is that people do in life, they make mistakes, and I see people in chat saying there could be things that exonerate him, and and that might be true. I mean, we live in America. You're innocent until you're proven guilty here, regardless of what anybody thinks. With that being said, when you're getting paid this much money for this prestigious a job, some of that money you're getting paid is just saying you're innocent until you're proven guilty, but you don't have a right to this job. And one of the things that we need you to do for all this money is not get yourself in these kinds of situations, right? Even if you're going to end up getting out of it, even if the legal system's going to get you out of it, you can't put yourself in this kind of situation because of the kind of situation it's going to put us in. And that's the situation that Texas finds itself in now. Recruiting is dead for this. I have no idea how. My dad was a professional recruiter for his whole life. There's certain carrots that you need to dangle in front of people to get them to come places. Where's the carrot? It's been completely taken away.
All right. I would advise anyone that wants more Chris Beard basketball discussion. I did a show last night on it. Anwar and I talked about it all throughout the Overreaction Monday show. We will we'll segue away from the Chris Beard story for a little while. Obviously, a lot is still to come with regards to the next shoe that drops, and among what I'm guessing could be a dozen pairs of shoes that drop before there's some finality to this. On the football side of things, one of the things I wanted to talk about, and Alex, I'll come to you first on this. We're going to talk some recruiting. National Signing Day literally right around the corner. I kind of want to go backwards on this. The portal is obviously a thing that everybody's kind of gassed up about. I mean, every time I write a portal story, it does pretty well. When we do portal videos, it does pretty well. It seems like, other than Ryan Sanborn, the punter from Stanford, that, Jason, it's probably fair to assume that we think that's going to go down for Texas at some point this week.
Next 48 hours, Catch. I'd be shocked if it didn't happen in the next 48 hours. Maybe as early as today, next 48 hours at the latest. Yeah.
You can almost chalk up Ryan Sanborn as want to steal his transfer commitment thunder, but I don't know that there's a strong number two, really. Like, it hasn't been mentioned. There are no other visits scheduled or anything like that. So it would be a weird damning indictment of Texas if he visits Texas and then is like, no, I'm going to go somewhere else without a visit. So we think that that's going to be part of this recruiting class for the Longhorns, or incoming players class, if you will. I don't get the sense in talking to sources that we're really going to hear anything else related to Texas going after someone in the portal until after National Signing Day. And maybe even then it might be till early January before we really start to see some of the dinner being cooked in the kitchen. Is anybody worried about that at all? And Alex, I'll come to you first. I mean, we know what's on the hook for the recruiting side of things, that Anthony Hill might still commit, and you want to get guys like Malik Muhammad and Jonte Cook signed and delivered, and so you don't have to worry about that anymore. And yet this is a team that could use some of their needs addressed in the portal. And there is a part of me that wonders, if you wait until January to really start approaching and trying to fix and address some of those needs, you run the risk of running out of time until the spring. And then even if you get guys in May, they won't have been able to participate in your offseason, spring workouts, all that stuff.
Well, I'm not worried. It's not my, it's not my job. I'm not the one being judged on this. But as an observer, if I was, can I see issues that could possibly come up with the timing and how they have it planned? Yeah. But if the plan is, and who knows, my guess would be the plan is, let's not upset the apple cart with the natural high school recruits that we have, right? Let's make sure we get these guys on board. They don't see that some guy has gotten an offer out of the transfer portal that they just look at and say, well, geez, this guy is what? He's going to be a sophomore, and and he plays my position. And last year he played at Alabama and stuff, those are things that could maybe give a guy some cold feet right at the last minute, which is certainly the last thing that you want to deal with. With that being said, I think that we've seen at spots like corner, right, wherever we know that coming back, all Texas has is, depending on whether Jalen Gilbo can move, which is something that I've written about, I think that maybe he might have to move. It's thin there, dude. Who do they have? They have sophomore. The Terrence Brooks will be a sophomore. Austin Jordan will be a sophomore. Ryan Watts will be a junior. And then they have Xavier Bryce, who only played 5 snaps last year. He redshirted. They have Malik Muhammad coming in, and that's it. That's it. And so we've seen, they like Gavin Holmes, the Wake Forest guy, who somebody told me that whenever he first came in to Wake Forest, he only weighed 149 pounds, which was wild to me to hear. But anyway, the fact that they've already made a move there at corner makes you think that they're not worried about losing any of these. Like, they point at the depth chart and they say, look at this depth chart. Look at this thing. Of course we're going to have transfer portal guys, like any like a guy like Malik Muhammad could, you could close your eyes and you can picture that dude starting, right? So I don't necessarily think that, if you're going to go after more of these corners, that there's anything hindering you right now from doing that, right? So maybe I think that they're lagging a little bit behind there. But, man, where I worry most is just about, if you're just looking at it from a, like at linebacker, Jalen Ford, I guess he's coming back, Jet Bush, I don't know if he's coming back. Catch, he didn't walk on senior day, right? He
didn't, but I haven't heard anybody say that Jet Bush is coming back. It's a bit of a weird situation.
Then you have Maurice Blackwell, who's been playing safety. He played linebacker, then he played some safety. This last year, he only played 2 snaps at safety out of the 60 snaps that he played on the season. David Benda, he'll be a senior next year. And other than that, you got guys who have never played yet, and we've talked about it. We've talked about it with like Derek Brown. And like, does he play edge? Travell Johnson, is he big enough? We talked about Samaje Burrell and the Leifau, like these guys coming in. That's not many linebackers. I don't think that any of those guys would look at that roster and just say, look, I'm not. I'm gonna decommit, or I'm gonna transfer out because you're getting some transfer portal guys because of these massive losses that we've had. I understand that there's the Anthony Hill stuff there to some degree, right? I'd be interested to hear from Jason. Maybe is the holding out on linebacker as opposed to putting out an early offer at corner? Does that have to do with Anthony Hill? And would Anthony Hill, if Anthony Hill commits, he's going to come here and be the immediate starter? I have zero doubt about that.
I don't think Anthony Hill cares necessarily, but it's not worth taking. If it's a 1% chance that he cares, it's probably
not want to screw that up, Jason.
Yeah,
and we've seen in the portal, some of these linebackers that they've taken have come in with a little bit more buzz than they've been even good. I think about what Ben Davis, Ray Thornton, Devin Richardson to some degree. Like a lot of these guys have come in with some interesting interesting bits to their profile, maybe some name recognition coming from good recruiting pedigree, coming from good schools that might throw off, I guess, throw off a prospective recruit or, maybe somebody who could be thinking about maybe entering the transfer portal who you're interested in keeping around. But given how thin it is at that position, I just wonder why they aren't treating it like corner and just kind of flooding the zone early with the offers, unless they just know the pieces they have in place and the staff who watches this video, and hello, we know that you guys do. They could be looking at this and saying like, well, Alex is so stupid because like he doesn't understand that we have this guy in place. This guy's already silently committed. This guy, we already have it done. There's no need to worry about it. I bet there's some of that stuff going on behind the scenes. But to me, I find it interesting that corner is a spot that they're willing to openly go give out an offer for, when it just seems like we haven't heard as much about linebacker.
But you know what though, Catch? As you guys were talking, I was looking up some stuff. When you look at last year, when you look at when guys started committing, Ryan Watts looks like he committed on December the 10th. And I'm going through the 24/7 website here. Isaiah Nayor was December the 22nd. Jaleel Billingsley was January the 11th. Jai Hall was April 7th. And then they get one of the last ones that they get is Diamante Tucker Dorsey. And that was in May 18th. So the majority of guys that they got outside of Ryan Watts came after the month of December. So it looks like that their plan, if they can follow it again, seems to be get all the horses in the barn as relates to the signing day class. And then after that, go after some more people. Then as next season rolls around and people doing all season workouts and going to portal spring, that's what it seems like they obtain as well.
But Mark, can I just say, I'm sorry, Catch. Can I just say just one thing, just real quick? Don't you think the circumstances are different this year at some certain position? I mean, the defense didn't feel like it needs to be 5-win season
last season,
right? But the defense didn't need right. But how many positions are they talking about replacing on defense this year? It feels like more. It feels like more. So to me, I can understand. To me, it just seems a little. It seems a little bit simplistic to me to be the staff and say we're going to follow the exact same blueprint as last year, even though the circumstances are a little bit different as far as how we need to be rebuilding.
I mean, I'll just go back one more time. Catch, I'll let you jump in. Darian Dunn came in with the previous staff. They got Ovie Ogofu on January the 5th. They got Ray Thornton. This is 2021. They got Ray Thornton on January the 12th. They got Ben Davis on February 15th. Devin Richardson comes in March 2nd. Keelan Robinson comes in June. I mean, I'm just saying, like, it looks like from the they had just been hired then, right? Like, are we talking about when they just came in and they got hired? Well, he got hired in November of that year, right? Right after the bowl game. So the long story short is, I'm just saying, like, it just seems like and you're right, maybe the January that doesn't count. So, but it seems like the bulk of their guys are coming January, February, March, April, May, June.
Well, I think one of the dynamics in play that we haven't mentioned yet, that in terms of the timing might prove to be really interesting. And I think we'll point to either they've kind of got their shit together really, really strongly, or they don't, maybe to that level, is that I continue to hear that the players that they will eventually be most interested in terms of bringing them to the program, are players that haven't yet entered the portal. So there's a lot of name recognition of guys and an urgency right now of, man, if you're going to get the guys that are in the portal right now, you have to do it early. You've got to be their first visit. Or if they take a second visit, you have to be that. But these guys are making their decisions before Christmas. I don't know that Texas is shopping from that pool of players. I think from what I'm hearing, is that there will be players that will eventually enter the portal that Texas will be most interested in. And then, Jason, at that point, they have to close on those guys, because if they don't, they will have kind of ignored the first flood of guys, right? I mean, there's still some criticism of that from a year ago where people are like, why weren't you on Jared Verse, who ends up signing with Florida State and having an All-America level season? Why did you wait so long to offer him if you knew you were going to offer him? I think this comes down to, I think Texas privately would probably say, we know what we're doing. We know who we're targeting. You guys don't. Sit back and be patient. I guess there's a benefit of the doubt that I'm willing to give, but it has to eventually come with some results.
Yeah, and I'm reading the chat in I am in total agreement with Ben G. He said, I'm trying to scroll down, something about, hey, you can't just take portals for the guys grabbing transfers to grab transfers is a bad strategy. People love seeing Sewell in the portal, but he isn't that good. Everyone still sees star ratings of seasons past. I look at the portal, like the guys in the portal, I'm looking at the rivals rankings. I mean, do you go after Denver Harris? I mean, great player, great recruit, but, came with had some issues at A&M in his first year.
I have heard that Texas is not coming within a 10-foot pole of Denver Harris. Now, maybe that changes. He's so talented, Jason. I mean,
I've reached out to him literally on this podcast, and I don't expect I'll hear back from him that quickly, but if I do, I'll obviously update you guys. I mean, I got to know Denver a little bit as a recruit. The A&M defensive lineman, Tamishi Adeleye, or however you say his name, who I think just released the top 4. Everybody's like, go get him. I'm like, really? I mean, does he really improve Texas that much? I mean, Dominic Lovett, I think, is appealing from Missouri. Tony Grimes, a cornerback, was a DB. I think he was a 5-star player, ended up signing with Matt Brown. Justin Flo, 5-star player. Those guys weren't great, even very good college players. I don't know, man. I mean, JoJo Earl's intriguing, of course, Brockermeyer, but I don't have a
Jason,
problem.
there's like a list of guys who are in the portal that were big-time prospects.
Doesn't mean they're great college players.
And then there's a list of guys who were really solid to above-average college players that don't quite have that profile.
I'd rather have those players than the high-profile recruits that didn't pan out, the Ben Davises, as Alex mentioned. But I don't have a problem at all. I mean, Texas is going to get the punter / let's not forget that guy also holds on field goals. I mean, Texas lost both of those spots off their roster from last year. So, it's not a sexy addition to go get the Stanford punter, but that's going to happen, and it fills 2 big needs for Texas. Then I think they kind of maybe keep some of these guys warm. You talk to them, but man, I think there might be bigger and better players coming in the portal down the road. When's it open up again? I know
Well, it stays open till January 15th.
Right. And then March.
And then it reopens in May. So after everybody's done with spring football, you'll have that next, I won't say flood, because maybe it won't quite be a flood, but there's a 2-week window from May 1st to May 15th where
I mean, I see Theo East, I know he's going to Missouri, but I'm just looking at guys that I remember as a recruit, like, Clayton Smith from Oklahoma. And are these guys that are really going to improve Texas that much? I mean, I think, like I said, Ben was spot on. It's like, you can't get too hung up on their recruiting profile. What I love more than that, I like to see guys, if you're going to take portal guys, and there's very rare that it's a bona fide superstar that was a superstar recruit that's also done really well in college is going to transfer. Take guys that are maybe smaller recruits, a guy like Isaiah Naylor, I know we didn't get to see him, but goes to a smaller school, kicks ass for a year or two, is a proven commodity. Those are the guys I think are going to help your program. So I don't really have a problem with Texas being patient. Now, as you said, Ketch, that means they got to pick the right guys down the road, and they got to close on those guys. It's a little bit of Russian roulette Texas is playing, but honestly, I think it's the right strategy.
I mean, Ketch, can I just ask you something, building off of what Jason said, because that's kind of what I was thinking about. When you think about like the last 2 kind of transfer portal, recruiting cycles, for the most part, isn't it kind of been like a mess sandwich of all the guys that they've signed? I mean, Ryan Watts maybe ends up being the top guy, and then who's after that? Ovi after that, like maybe Keelan. I mean they haven't really.
Quinn. Whatever we think of Quinn,
okay,
he was the starting quarterback and is.
I mean, so of like it'd be interesting Catch, maybe do a portal ranking of the guys they've taken over the last 2
That'd be
years.
interesting. Onward, that'd be an interesting write-up piece. Yeah.
We did this yesterday. We're constantly coming up with content ideas that we're going to store away for those spring months when we're like, what the hell are we writing about today?
Well, yeah, but it'd be interesting to say, okay, well, who do you think have been the best portal guys that they've acquired over the last 2 years? Because of the number of the guys that they've acquired, I don't really think you're overly excited about too many of them.
Well, I think one of the things that's happening on War is that you're seeing the way I think Texas approaches the portal is in a complete, it's evolving. So in year one, when Sark arrived, there was a definite profile that they were looking for. And Ray Thornton and Ben Davis and some of these guys that they wanted SEC guys with experience to come in because I think they thought, well, they might not be great at these SEC schools, but come to Texas and they'll look much better. That didn't happen. That was kind of their MO, was to go after, other than Dunn, who was a Tom Herman guy. Most of the guys that Texas went after in year one, major college football experience. Ovi would be another one of those guys, right? So they went to Notre Dame, LSU, Alabama, and then even last year, back to Alabama a couple of times for players. So we know kind of what they like, and yet it hasn't quite worked. You know, they go to Ohio State for a pair. So they like shopping at the Neiman Marcus like knockoff store, or like the 50% off the rack Neiman Marcus store, or is that Saks that has that? Maybe
I
both.
think they all do. What is that, last call?
They like to go to the Saks Fifth Avenue last call.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the names of a lot of the guys they're after right now. I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking about more guys from the SEC, but I think one of the things that Texas has got to figure out is, what does the right profile look like? And I think the conversation Jason's having is kind of his finger on the pulse of it. Are you going after Tommy Brockermeyer because he's a former 5-star, and when you evaluated him as a young player, you thought he had a lot of upside? Are you going after the guys with those reps? Or are you trying to search through the productive player pool of guys that might have been 2 or 3 stars, but were really good players in the Sun Belt or the Conference USA or the All-America Conference? And I think as every school approaches it differently. I saw that USC picked up a linebacker yesterday from Georgia Southern. And that hasn't really been the type of guy that Texas has really gone after first and foremost. USC and Michigan State and Florida State and some of these schools that really do the portal heavily, they just have a different approach. And I really think Texas's approach is somewhat evolving. I'm curious how the first 2 years will impact this year and how they're approaching it with what appears to be a sniper focus on some real specific guys that we might not know about, but behind the scenes, perhaps some legwork has been done.
Catch, do they have to approach the portal as if thinking the belief that we're close and we need these key pieces to get us over the hump? I mean, you can make an argument, you can make a close argument, right? If you want to make the close argument of no game lost by more than 7 points, average margin of defeat, so on and so forth. Do they have to go, instead of finding the guys like the Ben Davises of the world that may or may not pan out, we'll just see, do they have to kind of go for the bona fide like stars, kind of like, the Addisons of the world? Like this, do they just gotta have to say, we've just got to get studs?
If they can. I mean, this is a team that loses quite a bit of talent off of what ends up being an 8-4 team. Defensively, they've had a lot to piece together. I think one of the things that we talked about all offseason last year, Alex, was they returned almost everybody, right? So they put in Watts from Ohio State, but outside of that, anything that they did defensively in the portal, Tucker Dorsey, it was kind of for like situational players. They tried to get linebackers, but really didn't have a lot of success. Last year's team, though, I remember having the conversation with all of us, and I was like, I think there could be like 7 or 8 pro players on this defense. And I kind of got looked at like I had a third eyeball on my forehead, but it was like, well, they got 3 or 4 guys inside that could at least get chances to play in the NFL. Sorrell could turn into that type of player, Overshown and Jameson and Cook and maybe Watts. And you start listing them all out. It's like, how they have.
Well, I mean, let's just, so you said 7 or 8. So, okay. Moro Ojomo's going to sign with a really good agency. I'm sorry. I don't know who Ojomo's signing with. So, but I do know that Ojomo's getting some people at least talk about him. Okay. So Coburn's signing with a good agency and he gets a Shrine Game invite. Deshaun Jameson.
Well, hold on. Let's just stay up front. Like Tavondre Sweat eventually. Dude, the senior. Byron Murphy eventually.
Oh, yes.
Sorrell eventually.
Yeah, I think so. So what do we have?
Now, that's 5 just on the defensive line. Then if you go to linebacker, you've got Overshown.
Senior Bowl.
Now, I wasn't counting Ford last year, so I would feel disingenuous to count him today.
But it doesn't matter. You were saying over the course of you were probably.
Let's add him at the end.
Okay, fine.
Because nobody was saying they got 2 surefire NFL draft picks or potentials, but 6 with Overshown.
Yep.
I won't even count Ovi, but I think Ovi will get a shot at a camp. I think he's a practice squad player, but I won't count Ovi. But I will count Jameson, who's 7. Cook is 8.
Yep.
And then I probably would have said last year that like a guy like Barron will eventually.
Oh yeah,
the end of last season.
That's a lock. That's a lock. He's one of
those. Not including Ford last year, I was counting out like there were that many guys. It's hard. There's that number got cut considerably with senior departures, and I think if you don't, Anwar isn't the risk. Like, did they come back and they took that big step forward on defense, but now they got to rebuild it a little bit. They lose personnel that they don't automatically. There's nobody that come in and is a surefire like-for-like swap out with DeMarvion Overshown. And that Anthony Hill might eventually be that guy, but he's not that guy immediately. It's hard to fathom.
Yeah, and then I'll also say, too, people might be wondering, it's like, okay, these guys are on here talking about all these NFL players they had on the defense, and the defense did get better, but why wasn't it awesome? And the fact of the matter is, it's there's more volume than there is total star quality at the very top. We're talking
borderlines in that group.
Yeah,
that's fair. Like Moro, Jomo, but I think those are guys that stick. But you're right, Jason. You're right. And I think Alex, you're right. Star power. Ford, ironically, the one guy on the defense who drafted Ford, by the way, in our.
I don't think
we got to revisit that.
I think maybe I did, but we'll see.
I think Alex had the last pick, and if I remember, you're like, I could go like Ryan Watts.
I certainly took Ryan Watts. I think I took Ryan Watts, and I took Tavondre Sweat. We need to go back and listen to that thing.
I gave up a lot of money to draft Xavier Worthy, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody got, was it Jason? Were you the one that got Bijan?
No, I think it was me.
Let's see if I can find it.
I got Kelvin Banks. First round cheap, and Nayor was my last pick, which I was ecstatic about. Of course, that didn't work out.
We'll revisit that, certainly. Speaking of content pieces that might be interested.
So I got Jameson, Overshown, Kelvin Banks, and Nayor. Is that it? You get 4, right?
We had 5.
5.
Oh, Roshan.
I can't remember mine.
Roshan. I still will go down saying I won that damn thing, even without Isaiah Nayor. Play.
I spent a lot of my money on X.
Do you have it in front of you?
Me? No, I was just pulling mine.
Who posted it? I'm going to look it up.
Catch posted it because there was a big – and Catch won the vote. And I was like, that's just because all came down who had Bijan and who had Worthy is all anybody cared about. Beyond that, nobody really cared.
Well, yeah, in the spring, yes. Isaiah Nayor only gets you so much – credit when and Kelvin Banks I think I want to say that I ended up taking Campbell. I ended up getting the wrong freshman offensive lineman.
You took NATO.
Did I? Oh, I did take NATO.
I'm not convinced Isaiah Nayor wouldn't have been the best receiver on this team if he didn't get hurt. So, I mean, I don't get credit for that.
I did make a poll on that, didn't I?
Yeah, because we were betting. Alex, did you ever get your free meal or whatever Catch was supposed to send you?
What did I
forgot about it.
Wait a minute. How am I paying off a free meal before Alex does?
I was going to say, instead of sending that to Alex, just send it to me, and then Alex will clear your slate for the
I don't even know what I owe a meal for.
It wasn't just a meal. It was like a steakhouse thing. And then do you know what it was? He said he was going to pay for my what was it, like pay for my fantasy or something? I have to go back and listen to that. I'll go back and listen to that episode after this.
I got the results here. You ready?
Yes.
Yes.
So, Alex, you had Xavier Worthy, you had Cook, you had Collins, you had Sweat, you had Watts. Okay. I should have started. With Catch because Catch
had Bijan, not me.
Hold on. So Catch was the winner on paper, but Jason, check this out. He did Bijan, he did Finkley, he had Whittington, he had Nato, and he had Murphy.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Time people were getting too hung up on one pick. Nope.
Correct. Jason,
I did have the only first team All-American and one of the greatest 3 or 4 running backs in the history of the program. If nothing else, that's a big win. I mean, just for the record.
Yeah, one guy.
Still on the back too much for drafting Bijan Robinson. Okay.
Hey, when I made sure I walked away with one of the big dogs.
I got Patrick Mahomes on my fantasy team, and that counts. I mean, come on.
All right, Jason,
what was the other one?
Yeah, I'm trying to go there. Jason had Banks, Jameson, Roshan, DeMarvion, Isaiah Nayor.
That's a great draft.
Even without Nayor.
Yes. I had Quinn, Junior Angelau, Jalen Ford, Colborn, and Will Stone. So
Jason had the best draft.
Will Stone hurt you because the Ford pick was a great pick, obviously. Your Will Stone and Angelau, kind of like me getting punished for Nayor, kind of hurt both of us. But.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, Catch's draft was kind of pretty bad.
Oh, it was.
Like in hindsight, it was
on Orangebloods. That blew my mind on Orangebloods. He won by a landslide when we put it up for votes. Like, find the thread where it was a poll or something like that. Catch won by a landslide. I was like, what?
What can I say? The people love me, Jason.
And I think I was last. I'm pretty sure I was last on the Orangebloods poll.
What can I say? The people hate you, Jason. If we segue over to recruiting, Jason, I want your mod points to go up a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
There's not still really anything new to say with Anthony Hill, I suppose, other than we do know in-home visits are occurring this week. Let's just do an Anthony Hill portion of the modcast because I know that some people will absolutely want it.
Yeah. I wrote about it in my 3-2-1. I said it last week. Texas did an in-home last week. The defensive staff went last week. A&M went in last weekend. It was their Santini, I think their linebacker, co-defensive coordinator. Sark and a couple of assistants will go in this week for Texas on Thursday. I did ask somebody, I asked 2 people, in fact. I said, hey, has Jimbo done his in-home? And one source said they didn't know if he was there last week with Santini. Another one didn't respond. So I don't know if Jimbo's done his in-home. I mean, the person's been, close to Anthony has been answering all my questions. Didn't answer that one, but Sark goes in Thursday with some UT assistants. The other thing, Catch, I asked, I said, hey, when does Sark come in? And is there any chance y'all show up at either UT or A&M or both this weekend for one last visit? The Sark question was answered. The second question was skipped over. So I got 2 ways I think about that. Anthony Hill is not going to show up in Austin, Texas and not show up in College Station. He's not going to show up in College Station and not show up in Austin, Texas, because I think that would be that would set the internet ablaze and people would think that's tipping his hand, so on and so forth. So I think he either tries to hit both places or neither. Not sure what's going on there just yet. I'll try to follow up. It's only Tuesday, so maybe follow up tomorrow or Thursday. I talked to an A&M recruiting source who says he still doesn't get the vibe that there's a lot of confidence in A&M. Texas so far is the only team to get him on campus since he decommitted. He hasn't visited A&M again. Texas has him or had him on campus for the TCU game where they played exceptional defense, of course. So, people, do you think he's genuinely torn between Texas and Texas A&M? I said this was a Royal Rumble with Alabama was involved and LSU was trying to get in Ohio State. It's pretty much Texas and Texas A&M at this point. It's now just down to a two-man slugfest. I think Anthony's mind is probably completely made up or very close to it. I think he's just waiting I think we said it last week, Catch, you and I did, or maybe 2 weeks ago, where he just wants to rip that Band-Aid off on National Signing Day or the first day of the signing window, not have to deal with a bunch of questions and distractions and this, that, and the other. They've done a pretty good job, he and his family, of keeping everybody at bay. I think it's not official, but I think we'll get our answer on the 21st. And I still favor Texas. I think his mind is made up, but not a ton new to report other than, like I said, the in-home for Sark will be Thursday. And then we'll obviously be keeping an eye out this weekend to see if he shows up at either campus this weekend.
Samaje Burrell is an interesting piece of this because I don't want to say there's an indifference towards Burrell by the Texas coaching staff. He's coming in this weekend. He's scheduled to for the official visit.
Unofficial visit, but yeah.
Yeah, excuse me. But when the Sunday news came out about U of H hosting Ryan Niblett and what they've been trying to do with other players in the Texas commitment fold, and we've been talking about this for a little while because obviously Dylan Spencer's been a guy, and so has Samaje Burrell, been guys whose names have been connected. My guys were telling me that Niblett is the one guy of that group that they're concerned about the most, and like if they have to make sure they hold on to somebody, it would be Niblett. If you don't have Anthony Hill, Samaje becomes one of the most important prospects in this class because linebacker is such a big need. I feel like, Jason, inadvertently, we were given an Anthony Hill tip of sorts with regards to where Texas feels like they stand with Anthony Hill, in the sense that they didn't feel like Samaje being at U of H was a desperate situation. They were much more relaxed about potentially losing him, and they don't want to lose him. But if they did, it doesn't feel like they think it's a disaster. And it does make me think that they feel pretty good about what's about to happen at that position.
Well, that would seem to bode well for their chances with Anthony Hill. And the other side of that is Samaje's been pretty open with me. So I know he's been open with the Texas coaches about visiting Houston. He thought about visiting Baylor this coming weekend, but he did confirm with me last night he'll be in Austin this weekend with all the other Texas commitments. So that's a big development. He's told me all along, dude, I'm solid with Texas. I'm signing with Texas on the 21st. He visits Houston last week. You mentioned Niblett visiting there. Officially, there's a couple other. The Houston staff is sitting there saying, are leaking out like, hey, we think we're going to flip a couple guys this weekend. So there were some anxious moments there for a bit, but Dylan Spencer, excuse me. I think Dylan Spencer is the one to watch out of those three. Niblett confirmed with me he's coming to Austin this weekend. Sources in Austin told me, hey, they feel like he's, after some anxious moments over the weekend, they feel like he's back in the fold. He's locked in. He's coming back in for a visit on Saturday. Same with Samaje. So, but I do tend to agree with you, Catch. Like the fact that they maybe weren't quite as worried about losing Samaje, and that's not to say they don't like Samaje as a player, but that tells me, I think, people in Austin maybe feel pretty good about their chances with Anthony Hill. And, I tend to agree with them. Anthony plays it close to the vest. He doesn't really talk to anybody at all. And if he does, he doesn't really tip his hand. But you just kind of read the tea leaves like you have to do in recruiting a lot of times. And there are a lot more positives for Texas than there are for Texas A&M with Anthony Hill.
Can you guys help me out with just understanding something? And I understand that how that could relate to Anthony Hill, but could it also relate to the fact that it's Houston? Why is Houston coming into the picture? Why is that's not been on the old bingo card all year? That
Well,
all
they
of a
already
sudden,
took a receiver commitment. They had 3 Texas commitments on campus last week. And, I talked to a Houston guy, Alex, this weekend about it. We were talking on Sunday, and we're just kind of picking each other's brain. And he's like, man, it's not like Houston has this big NIL fund. I mean, they've got some big money backers. I mean, most schools do. But he's like, they're not throwing around tons of NIL money that he's aware of. So, some of that you can Dylan Spencer and Ryan Niblett, you can say, okay, they're maybe considering staying close to home, but not like Austin's that far from Houston, right? So, I don't know, man. It's a bit of a head scratcher, but I think, and then, I mean, let's just put it out there. The other question is, hey, are they doing it because maybe it drives up NIL opportunities at Texas? I don't know the answer to it, but it is a bit of a head scratcher as to why Houston's become such a threat with some of these guys all of a sudden.
I think sometimes also a thing that happens in recruiting later in the cycles is that all the guys that we've mentioned, if they're on the Houston recruiting class, they're like the stars of the Houston recruiting class.
Whereas early playing time is pretty much
at Texas, they're kind of on the second half of the recruiting list. I mean, they're not Arch, they're not Jonte, they're not Malik Muhammad, they're not Derek Williams, they're not Cedric Baxter. Like, there are some legitimate superstar candidates.
That makes sense.
And I think that sometimes these guys sit around and don't quite feel the love. And sometimes it's not from the coaches. Sometimes they're on Orangebloods.
Hey, Ryan Niblett, answer my phone call then.
He followed like his whole family follows me on Twitter, so maybe
he's been very receptive. I'm being a little bit silly. He's been very receptive and responsive to my text this week, which I do appreciate. So I got to put that part out there too.
I think sometimes it's just about maybe wanting to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond as opposed to a regular size fish in a bigger pond. I don't know. Sometimes, I'm not saying that's it, but I do know that's it sometimes. Jason, on the recruiting front, anything else you want to touch on before we get into parting shots? It's almost been an hour.
Yeah, big weekend this weekend. Most of their committed guys are going to be in town this weekend, including their out-of-state. Most of their out-of-state commitments. We're still working to confirm Arch Manning. Will Randall will not be in, but I mean, Sadir Mitchell, the defensive tackle out of New Jersey, is coming in this weekend, which is big. Texas did in home with him Monday, and him coming in because Georgia is not gone away there. Kirby Smart did in home with him last week, I believe it was. So Sadir Mitchell will be in. Peyton Kirkland will be in on his official visit. Most of the committed guys, you'll have some 2024 prospects. I'm looking for official visits. Rylan Kennedy was a guy that Texas offered a couple weeks ago. Things moved really quickly. Actually, it was early last week. He ended up going to A&M this last weekend and committed to A&M. So I'm assuming he won't be visiting Texas this weekend as originally planned. Working to confirm that. Jelani McDonald, linebacker / safety, will be in this weekend on an official visit. Roderick Pierce, big defensive lineman out of Chicago, will be in. I mentioned Peyton Kirkland. So big recruiting weekend for Texas to kind of, maybe kind of ease any of these last minute concerns that some of these guys may be having. Guys like Niblett and Samaje, they'll get them all together with all these other commitments. So should be a pretty big recruiting weekend for Texas to maybe kind of settle things down before the early signing period opens on Wednesday of next week. So we'll be monitoring all that over the course of the weekend.
Anybody else got anything before we jump into parting shots? Anwar, I'll let you have the floor first if you're ready.
Sure. I've got nothing. But you know what? I just
you looked like you were ready. Like, so
I did. Because you know what? I've had like a bunch of different thoughts in my head, and I just didn't know which one to go with. Like one of my thoughts has been, parting shots has been like, I feel like I'm the worst AAU parent that's out there because I think I'm the only person that doesn't think my son is going to go pro. And it's really hard having conversations with people who everyone has the big dream in my head. And I'm just like, Yeah, man. I don't really view it or think of it like that, but it's fascinating just with this knowledge that we have, and I see parents wanting to fight each other, and oh man, I got a good story. I don't know if I should share it, but I'm going to share it.
Share it.
So we play in this tournament in Austin this past weekend over at St. Michael's, right? So Max is in 4th grade. He's on a 5th grade team, right? But apparently what happens in this thing is that people bring in ringers, right? And so this team that we were going to play against in the second game, we're a 5th grade team. They had nothing but 6th and 7th graders on there. Like, they had dudes on there who literally about close to 6 feet, right? And so one kid has like a little mustache. You're like, wait a second. So our coach starts complaining of like, hey, what's the deal with this thing? Like, what's going on? And they're like shoulder shrugging her. So then our coach then grabs a couple of 7th graders from our team, but our league, but organization, and she puts them on our team. Now this other team is now hot pissed off because they're like, wait a second, those kids just played 30 minutes ago on a 7th grade team. And she's like, if you guys are going to do it, we're going to do it. So all of a sudden we engage in this hot, heated like battle, and our team eventually wins by like 1 point. These kids who are playing on our team look like freaking all-stars. Like, my kid he's in 4th grade. He's like, I asked him about afterwards. He's like, it looked like it was a movie. Like, he was just that fascinated by how fast and how athletic they are. It's just this world of AAU. I've seen so many things this year, Catch, with whether it's a coach taking a swing at a parent, and I had to pull back a coach. I've seen people go after referees. And now I've seen like people bringing in 7th graders to win a 5th grade division. It's the most fascinating thing that I see, which is probably why I just kind of distance myself a lot. And I just kind of.
It's only getting worse from here. You know that, right?
Yeah.
And this is the calmest it's ever going to be.
You're right, because there's nothing that's theoretically on the line at this moment, but as opposed to when they started getting into high school and when there's a lot on the line and God forbid certain things happen. Yeah, it is just a fact. I think I've just told myself I'm going to get a video camera and just start taping games. So I can just be away from parents and just be in my own world. You
might need a therapist just to talk about AAU once a week. It's not the worst thing you could probably do.
It is sickening, but yeah, there you go.
Alex, what about you?
I mean, I actually have one today, and I can't believe we didn't touch on it during the show. And it's not a little bit less lighthearted, man, but I just have to say it, dude. I love Mike Leach. I love it. I love him. I always have. I think he's awesome. It's great for football. Revolutionary, mind? Is that the right even word? Not just a special mind for football, man. There's just a different mind for football, a different kind of dude, a dude who came in and did it his own way, man, the Pirate. And with the word of his passing, I've been shook by it, man. These last few days, ever since we sort of started hearing about this, it kind of shook me a little bit worse than I thought, for one, him being so young, only 61 years old. And then two, is just being Leach, man. He's a guy you don't want off the landscape. So all my prayers go out to his family, to the people who were closest to him, to those who loved him, and may the Lord be with him on this next part of his journey. So that's my parting shot.
Alex, I'm reminded of I think it was an ESPN story that ran a couple of years ago where in the 99 game, he faked a game plan and like a play sheet and planted it so that the Texas coaches would find it. And then they did. And then Oklahoma jumped out to like a 17-0 lead because Texas was trying to use the dummy sheet that he planned it for them to use.
That's hilarious.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that game.
So I don't know. I was thinking about that the last 24 hours. Someone mentioned it on Orangebloods, and if you haven't read that, do a Google search on the fake play sheet that Leach created that fell into the hands of a Texas staff member who, it's a great read.
There are almost too many, dude. They're just too many.
It's just I don't know that I can say I agree with everything. Like I find myself having mixed thoughts on Leach as like a human being at times, but man, there's no denying a really fantastic football coach. He's the kind of guy that could just take a bunch of leftover guys and have a good team, competitive team. And you cannot say that about a lot of coaches. A lot of coaches need their guys or need a certain kind of recruit to succeed. There was probably a ceiling on how good a Mike Leach team could be, but that he could take almost any seemingly spare players and make a 8-4 football team out of it, and always have a good offense. An absolutely fantastic football coach who had success at multiple stops, which shouldn't be underrated. Sometimes you catch the lightning in a bottle and then you aren't able to replicate it at another school. Success at 3 different locations as a head coach isn't a small thing. And look, just from a character standpoint, what a character. I mean, I would like to think that one day, they'll write my obituary and they'll say he triggered A&M fans maybe as much as anybody who ever lived. I don't even know that I can compete with Mike Leach when it comes to triggering A&M fans, and that he regularly beat A&M after talking so much trash about A&M.
So good.
They broke the mold with Mike Leach. There's no doubt about that. Jason, what about you? What do you got from a parting shot standpoint?
Yeah, not much. I'll just kind of echo on the Leach thing. It was funny even watching Mississippi State and A&M this year, and they're up by, I remember the scenario, but like 14 or 17 late in the fourth quarter. He's still chucking the ball downfield. That's how he loves sticking it to A&M more than anybody. So, and just a fun character to follow. And there's actually an Orangebloods member, a guy that I know who's really good friends with him. And I mean, they vacation together down in the Florida Keys. They're that good of friends. They become that good of friends. And I reached out to him yesterday and I said, hey, man, I mean, the Leach thing, like Alex said, it kind of impacted all of us who kind of watched him from afar. And I know it's really hitting you hard. And just, condolences to Leach's family, the Mississippi State community, even my friends and neighbors who are Texas Tech fans. They've been distraught by it this week. And certainly, his friends and family, including our Orangebloods friend. My condolences to Leach and his family, and just a sad situation overall.
My parting shot, I already said a few words on Leach, so I'll move along. It just occurred to me, what is today, the 13th of December?
Yep.
I haven't watched a single Christmas movie yet this year.
Wow. And you have kids. What's going on with you, man?
Elf has been on in the background because I have kids, right? So there are movies, but I'm a big Christmas movie viewer. I will sit down and watch Christmas movies by myself, not needing the kids. And here we are 12 days away from Christmas, and that has not happened yet. No, It's a Wonderful Life. No, The Ref. No, I haven't even watched Love Actually this year. And I like to watch the Brits make sex jokes and be uncomfortable around each other. Give me a little Hugh Grant. Just hasn't happened yet. I don't know if that means I'm not in the Christmas spirit yet. Am I overworked? What do you guys think? I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with me that we're midway through December and I don't have the Christmas thing going yet. You know what?
Can I say you're old because every year you always stir it up with the Die Hard controversy of is Die Hard a Christmas movie or not? And you'll put that in your 10 thoughts for the weekend. And inevitably it's 10 pages of people debating is Die Hard a Christmas movie or not? And you haven't done it this year.
I did it this weekend.
Even his 10 thoughts.
The problem is the Chris Beard thing happened yesterday. And it completely overshadowed what would have been the Die Hard, because I ranked my top 10. It's the thing that led me into this party shot. I re-ranked my Christmas movies as a top 10, but I haven't watched any of them.
I haven't seen any of those movies you just mentioned. Would you say It's a Wonderful Life or the British one? I haven't seen. Well, I've seen Die Hard, of course. But, hey, Catch, are you going to see? There's one.
Die Hard before Godfather. Like, what the hell?
I did watch Die Hard 2 the other day. That's
I finally watched Godfather on where I finally checked that off the list. But,
I know,
hey,
but how did you go your life with watching Die Hard before Godfather?
it came out like when I was in high school or something, probably. I remember. Catch, are you going to see? My son and I want to see this one. It's called Violent Night. It's out at the theaters right now.
I'm not going to see that. By the
I'm
way,
dying to see that, dude.
are you guys seeing this? Like, I've just got this blinking light now going on, and so it's like being in the middle of like a stop. Like, I feel like there's a right turn blinker flashing on a sign right now. It's just
You got something.
I guess this isn't plugged in or something, but the my lighting is about to go out, so maybe we should say goodbye. And on that note, everybody's silence pretty much said goodbye. I do want to mention again, hey guys, you're not out of time with regards to the Dead Soxy promo we talked about at the very beginning of the show. It's free. Go to deadsoxy.com /sweepstakes. Just sign up. It's a chance to win. There's 10 winners, 27 pairs of socks. There's $1,000 value. The 10 winners will receive a briefcase full of socks. Jason lifted his foot and showed us earlier. That wasn't I'm not asking you to do it again, Jason. And a $300 gift card. So go sign up, deadsoxy.com /sweepstakes. Get the hookup. I promise you, if you win, you will not be disappointed. On that note, and by the way, money out the anus. Where was it? Hold on. I'll let you have the final note. Violent Night looks stupid to me.
88% on Rotten Tomatoes, dude. Come on now.
88% on Rotten Tomatoes can't completely be wrong.
Santa Claus who like beats the hell out of people. Who doesn't want to see that, man?
My son can't wait to see it, so I'm with you, Jason.
Hey, at what age can you show kids Bad Santa?
Oh, that was pretty rough. Yeah.
20?
I ain't there yet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, my son, 16. My daughter is, I don't know, man. You guys need to wait a little longer.
Yeah. Well, for myself, Jason, Alex, and Anwar, who knows what we'll be showing our kids in the next 13 days. You guys have a great rest of the day and a great week. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Tuesday. New date for the Modcast. Don't look for us on Thursdays for a Modcast. We've moved to Tuesdays for the foreseeable future. Anyway, we're 12 days away from Christmas. You guys get your shopping done. Love on your loved ones. We'll see you next week. Later.